Hello everyone, today I am here to talk all about Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So if you aren't familiar with Taylor Jenkins Reid, I read a lot of her books last year. Last year was the time I discovered the author and I fell in deep, fell in hard, couldn't stop, won't stop, will never stop. The first book I read by Taylor Jenkins Reid was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I'm sure a lot of you guys that are watching can attest to that as well. I'd say that Taylor Jenkins Reid was a pretty well-known author before that, but her book Evelyn Hugo really blew up, especially last year. Everybody pretty much read it, and after that a ton of people fell in love with her books, including myself. So once I read Evelyn Hugo, I had to read every single one of her books, and I have. So this one is her latest release, Daisy Jones and the Six. This one, to say it had a lot of expectations on it would be a vast understatement with the really big success that Evelyn Hugo was. I think a ton of people, myself included, were very much anticipating Daisy Jones and the Six, and with that had a lot of expectations on this book. Now, did it deliver? In my opinion, yes and no. I'll talk more about it. In this video, basically, I'm going to tell you what this book is all about, what I thought about it. I'm trying not to spoil it. I don't think it's a book that really should be spoiled, but overall, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So, Daisy Jones and the Six, what it is all about is literally the title. So this book is told in the 70s, once again with historical fiction, much like Evelyn Hugo was as well, historical fiction. And this book is told in a different way than any other Taylor Jenkins Reid books before. This one is told all in interview format. Think of kind of VH1's like Behind the Music, if you will, when they talk about, it's been a while since that's been on, so I'm showing my age there, but when they interviewed bands and about their songs and how they came together and the, pitfalls and amazingness of different bands, it very much reminded me of that. So in this book, you never hear the interviewer ask questions. You much rather just hear from everybody else. You much rather hear the answers. So this book follows the Six, and they are a band that came to be in the 70s, and it follows their rise and kind of their fall. So the Six got really, really popular, then they became Daisy Jones and the Six, and then one night everything changed and they just stopped becoming a band. At the height of their career, they just stopped touring, they stopped being together, they just stopped being a band, period. So this book really follows what happened in that. It follows how the Six got together. It follows how Daisy Jones came into the mix. It follows how it all ended and things like that. It's told, like I said, all in interview format. See, right here, it's just literally interviews. So you have a whole bunch of different characters. You hear from every single person in the Six band. You also hear from sometimes photographers that were shooting one of their album covers. You hear from the music producer of one of their albums. You hear from their agent. You hear from the record company. You hear from Rolling Stones. You hear from a plethora amount of people all commenting on Daisy Jones and the Six, the band. The way that this was told, like when I did not know it was told in that regard. I just thought it was about the band and that's what it was going to be told on. I didn't know it was going to be strictly in an interview format. When I say it's strictly an interview format, every single page is just interviews. So you get different people talking every single page, answering like interview questions. Did I love that? I will say at the beginning, I did not love that. I found it very hard to get into. I was very taken aback that it was told in an interview, and I was really worried I was not going to connect with the characters because it was told in such a way, because I felt like it was just very off-putting and I just wasn't into it. I'd say around the 25% mark is when I fell in deep with it. Like I really got used to how the interview format was going. I got a handle on each character. I understood how it was being told, and then I just fell in hard. I became obsessed with this book. I had to finish it, and when I wasn't reading, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about this band. Once again, Taylor Jenkins Reid crafts characters that seem so insanely real. This is the second book of hers where I have finished it, and I have went on Google and tried to look up the people in this book thinking they were 100% real characters, and they are 100% fictional. That's how well Taylor Jenkins Reid crafts characters. Like, I felt like this was a real band. I wanted to listen to every single one of their albums. I wanted to see their live performances. I wanted to see their Rolling Stone covers and look at their album covers and see if I felt like everybody else did. And then I was like, they're not real. That's just, I think that shows Taylor Jenkins Reid as an author in itself, as just how real she makes her characters to be. So overall, to give this a rating, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. I know this book has been getting mixed reviews. A lot of people don't love the format. Understandably so. I'm not going to lie to you and say that this format of book is perfect for everybody. It is not. Whereas, and I think everybody could probably love Evelyn Hugo, I don't think everyone could love Daisy Jones and the Six because of the way it was told. So I'll tell you that right up front. Does that make me love it any less? Not really. This book gives you such 70s feelings vibes. It makes you want to listen to all of the 70s music. This book reminded me so much of Fleetwood Mac that I went and listened to all of Fleetwood Mac's greatest hits just to get into the zone while reading this book. Like, I felt like I had to do research while reading this book because I wanted to get a sense of the Six's music and Daisy Jones' vibe. She had that very Stevie Nicks 70s kind of flower child type of vibe. And actually there is a playlist based on Daisy Jones and the Six on Spotify. I'll try to link it down below. I don't know if you can link Spotify music, but I'll try to link it down below. In that playlist there is a whole bunch of Fleetwood Mac. So this book is clearly very inspired by the band Fleetwood Mac. I guarantee you're going to read this and you're going to think of the band Fleetwood Mac. Like, no other band is going to come to your mind more than Fleetwood Mac in this book. Also a whole bunch of current artists on that playlist as well, such as Harry Styles, First Aid Kit, the Civil Wars, that type of feeling. There's also like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Patti Smith, a whole bunch of really big artists in the 70s as well. So I got off track as I usually do. So basically what I'm trying to say is this whole book is told in interview format, and it's basically about the band Daisy Jones and the Six, of how they came to be, very, very popular, and how one night changed everything for them, how they just split up, and nobody knows why they split up until this book. Like, pretend this is a real book based on a real band. This book's just coming out and you're like, oh, that's why the Six split up. This book will give you more insight to that. So like I said, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved it. I was really grappling whether or not to give it a 5 out of 5, I'm honest with you, because I did struggle with the first 25% of it. But at the end of this book, I was so into it, I had to give it a 5 out of 5. Like, when it ended, I got sad. As of all of her books, every single one of her books I finished, I am genuinely sad that it is over because I am enjoying myself that much. So yeah, I had to give it a 5 out of 5. For the pureness of, I felt these characters were so vivid and so real. I felt completely captivated by this book. I loved the hearing about the song process. So overall, I had to give it a 5 out of 5. I felt like it was that in my heart. So taking away for me not to gush about this whole book, there are some downfalls, like I said, to it. Number one being the format of it. I think it's a book, like I said, I think it's a format you're either going to really like or you're really not going to like. Like I said, this book is not for everyone, understandably so, because of the format it is told in. You think that you will not get a sense of the characters from the format of this book, and I will say that's kind of true and kind of not. I felt at the beginning of this book that I was going to have a really hard time differentiating each of the characters, and as time it got easier. I'm not going to lie to you, some characters in this book I didn't really care about. Some of the band members I didn't, but the majority of them I could get a clear level picture of who they were, what kind of character they were, and I genuinely knew, like, cared about them. Daisy Jones and the lead singer of the Six, Billy. This book really kind of follows them and their journeys and how they came to be musicians and how they got together and things like that. That's one thing I could see not loving, is you don't get a clear cut on the characters, because some of them you're not going to really care about, some of them you are. Another thing I didn't love about this book was the ending. I felt like it was too open-ended in my opinion. Wanted a little bit more of a definitive ending. I felt like it was just like an ending where you can guess what happens from there. You can, you know, use your mind and put up whatever scenario happens in the book, you can go for that. I like clear-cut endings a lot in my books. I really wanted that, but we didn't get it, so that's one thing I didn't love as well. But other than that, I enjoyed the mess out of this book. This book is going to give you such 70s music vibes. Like, you're going to want to listen to 70s music while reading this book. You're going to want to research the fashion that was in the 70s, who was who in the 70s, and also research the drug use, honestly. This book, I would say if you have a huge trigger warning for drugs, do not read this book, because this book is 100% full of them. It was the 70s, especially if you were in the music scene. Drugs were very, very relevant and just everywhere in the 70s. Several of our main characters struggle with drug addiction, struggle with alcoholism, struggle with pills, struggle with a lot of different things, and you get to see the full brunt of that with these characters, whether they were using or not, how it affected them, and just, it was very interesting reading about all of the drug use in the 70s. Like, I kind of knew about it, but I didn't know too much about it. If this paints a picture of how it was for musicians in the 70s, like, wow, it was a lot. Say if a lot of drug use kind of triggers you or you don't like it, this book will not be for you because there is a ton of it in it, just so you're aware of. Also, it talks a lot about love and family. Main character Billy struggles with addiction and struggles with wanting to be a family man for his wife and his children, and he's also maybe falling in love with somebody else. Daisy Jones very much is a drug addict, and she had a really tumultuous childhood, and she just wants to be a free spirit and do what she wants to do. She's very much, I would say, written in the vein of Stevie Nicks. I don't know a lot of Stevie Nicks like history, whether or not she was a drug user or if she was like a hippie. I don't know, honestly, so I can't say for sure that she was like her, but she, like when I was reading her, I kind of pictured Stevie Nicks because I just pictured Fleetwood Mac in this book so much so I just want to say that. But it was very interesting. Also, Taylor Jenkins Reid knows how to write authors that you hate and simultaneously love. Like these characters, all of them are very, very unlikable characters, but somehow through like a span of 10 pages, one minute you're rooting for them and the next minute you're like, I can't stand you. She writes these characters that I don't think I would ever like get along with any of these characters in real life, but I loved reading about them so much. They were very much unlikable characters, I will say. She just writes them so amazingly well, and I'm surprised that I love them as much as I do because they are so unlikable, especially our two main characters, Daisy Jones and Billy. They are at the height very, very unlikable. There are some traits of Billy that I really love. There are some that I don't like. There are some of Daisy that I love and that I don't like. This book also shows you that, especially because it's told in an interview process, of how sometimes horrible people can take communication. Like at one point, like I think the band was recording an album and somebody had said something, and Billy had said something to Daisy, and like he said one thing in the interview, Daisy said he said a completely different thing, and then people in the background had said they said a completely different thing. So it just goes to show you that like what's the real answer of who said what to who? Nobody knows, because I think everybody just hears what they want to hear. Does that make any sense? It's just very interesting. There were so many times in this book where a character would say, that character said something to me, and then the other character said, I didn't say that to her. This is what I said to her. And another character would say, they actually said this. And it's just very interesting. So you're like, who said what? What was really said? It's so miscommunication. It's chock full of miscommunication in this book, and I think that just shows a lot for musicians too. Like this really also got into the heavy scene of recording, of how to record an album. I don't know much about recording an album. I know a little bit because my husband is a musician, but I really honestly loved breaking down of how they wrote the songs, how they put the guitar riffs on them, and then how they had to mix it and they put in different sounds in it. I really love that. And it's also interesting reading about the whole other band, because in this book, like I keep saying, you're mainly known for Daisy Jones and Billy. Billy's the main singer of the Six. Daisy Jones is her own singer. They are the two shining stars of this book, and everybody else in the band feels that way as well, that they're kind of on the back burner. Nobody really cares about them because they're not the lead singers. Nobody, you know, and they want more attention. They want more recognition. They want to be heard more, especially with their parts, what they play with their instruments. It's very interesting to read about that. I've never read a book where you got to hear from the other members of the band and just how they felt about how they were feeling left out, or they really weren't as big as they wanted to be because these two people took up all the star power. Overall, I loved it. I'd say if you're really interested in learning about a band, about these characters that have so many tumultuous things happen to them, they go through real highs in their life, they go through real lows in their life, a lot of drug use, like I said, the music scene, this whole 70s scene, honestly, I would recommend this book. Like I said, a 5 out of 5, definitely one of my favorites of the year. It's very different from any of her other books. You have to realize that. I enjoyed it. Like I said, the main thing for me is how real it felt. This book felt 100% real. Like I really felt like I read a interview biography about a real life band and not a fictional band. And to me, that says that Taylor Jenkins Reid can craft a hell of a story if I think that they are 100% real when they are 100% fictional. That's just my opinion. I think people could really not like this book because of the way it's told and the story that it tells, and I understand that. Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. If you loved it as much as I did, or if you did not, if you were kind of jarred by the way it was told. And also, if you're wondering, I am making my Taylor Jenkins Reid video very, very soon where I talk about every single one of her books, which one to my favorite, which ones were my favorite, which were my least favorite. I love this book. I already want to reread it because I was so captured by it. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.